In the wilds of Africa, there is no room for mercy. The seemingly peaceful stretches of golden grassland are a fierce arena where the strongest creatures not only hunt, but also fight for survival. And among all the confrontations on the savannah, there is no battle more dramatic, fierce, and unbelievable than the fight between African buffalo and lion, two opposing forces, one with intelligence and pack tactics, the other with muscle-killer instinct and fierce determination to the end. Today we will witness the unthinkable moments where buffaloes become fearless warriors and lions, the kings, sometimes pay dearly for a small mistake. How do these moments happen? Don't change the channel, we will show you now. Dawn had barely cleared the horizon when the earth began to change. On the African grasslands, still damp with the night's dew, dark shadows moved silently through the tall grass, making almost no sound. They were predators, sturdy, silent, and deadly. The lions were awake, and their ancient instincts told them that this was a day of blood and survival. They advanced slowly. Each step was carefully measured. No growls, no rush. Only their eyes, sharp as knives, followed the movements of their prey. And then, like a gift from the heavens, a herd of buffalo appeared at the edge of the valley. Large, huge, but also an opportunity not to be missed if they could separate one from the protective circle. Lions are masters of patience. They do not attack when they see prey. They wait until the wind changes, the herd is caught off guard, or a slow-moving individual breaks away. When the moment comes, the pride of lions seems to spring up from the ground. The black shadows turn into a ferocious whirlwind tearing through the air toward the herd of buffalo. Grass collapses, dust flies. The herd flees in panic like a wave breaking on a shore. But not all escaped. A bull was isolated half a ton, but now lost in a swarm of predators. The bites were precise. The claws dug into flesh. The prey fell. However, nature has never been the scene of easy victories. In the moment that seemed certain, the ground shook with the sound of returning footsteps. The adult buffaloes, huge, furious, had not abandoned their brethren. They turned and charged back toward the battlefield, their horns pointed like living spears. One lion, unable to react, was gored and sent flying. Its body spun in the air, then fell to the ground like a nightmare that had been repulsed. The remaining lions who had been certain of victory were now fugitives. They scattered into the grass, looking back in horror. The feast had become a death trap. The hunters had become prey, but the buffalo herd was not yet calm. They continued to chase, ready to crush anyone who dared to come near the herd again. Because in nature, victory does not always belong to those with claws, but sometimes it belongs to those who know how to stand up and fight for each other. The lion, the top of the food chain, usually walks without looking behind him. It is a symbol of strength, of absolute power in the wild. But in Kruger National Park, a lioness has lost some of that crown. A few days ago, it had been wounded after a failed hunt. Its body was thin, its steps were heavy, and its breathing was short and shaky. That afternoon, under the scorching sun and the seemingly silent space, it lay, resting tired, motionless, no longer the appearance of a ruler. And then disaster struck without warning. A full-grown buffalo weighing more than 2,000 pounds suddenly charged. No sound, no warning. Just one charge, clean, straight into the lion's torso. The massive body was flung off the ground, spinning in mid-air before crashing to the hard ground. At that moment, time seemed to stop. The blow was too strong, too sudden. Without the need for blood to flow, one could feel the internal organs being damaged inside that fragile body. The lion lay there. No roar, no fight. Just a weak breath in the harsh heat in the world it once ruled. And now its life was counted in hours. There are some seemingly fantastic stories in the world of nature. One of them is about a seemingly doomed man, a lone buffalo, facing off against two of the most fearsome predators on the planet, a lion and a crocodile. The story begins on a sunlit riverbank where every blade of grass seems to breathe, where every bird song seems to signal nothing unusual. But then a violent noise tears through the air, the stamping of hooves, the growling of a stalking man. A buffalo separated from its herd in a moment of carelessness is running for its life across the muddy terrain with a pride of lions hot on its heels. It ran along the riverbank where there was no escape. Water ahead, claws behind. In a decisive moment when land was no longer a safe place, it plunged into the river seeking a ray of hope amid the peril that surrounded it. Sprays of water rose like desperate fireworks as its heavy body struggled to swim to the other side. But nature is never easy. From beneath the water, the long, cold, murderous silhouette of a crocodile suddenly emerged. Those deadly eyes needed no reason. They only knew that the feast was ready. In an instant, the iron-bladed teeth shot forward, biting into the space where the buffalo had just struggled to squeeze through. Once, twice, then 3 times, and all missed. With incredible agility for such a large body, the buffalo dodged fatal blows, despite being completely passive in the deep water. It was as if the survival instinct at that moment overcame all physical limitations. But it understood clearly underwater it could not fight. It needed land, needed gravity, needed steady legs to fight against death. It turned, back to shore where other predators still lurked. It was not a choice, it was an acceptance of fate. But this time it did not run, it did not panic, it did not duck. The buffalo braced itself and charged straight at the pride of lions like a living spear, its 2 curved horns lowered, pointing straight at its enemy. It turned and turned, warding off each attack. Each step forward was a clear message: I am not as easy to swallow as you think. The suddenness and determination of the lions made them stop. They retreated, waiting for an opening. But the buffalo did not give them a chance. In the midst of the struggle, when all of nature seemed to hold its breath, a miracle happened. The buffalo herd, its comrades, returned. 1, then 2, then the whole herd. The whole earth seemed to shake as they charged toward the pride as one. That unity needed no words. It was instinct, it was blood, it was a signal from nature that no one would be left behind. The pride of lions retreated. The buffalo was lucky to escape. But it didn't just survive, it survived as a warrior, as proof that sometimes seemingly silent horns can tell the loudest survival story in the wild. In a hidden corner of the Luangwa National Park, as the last rays of the setting sun slanted over the dry savanna, a figure moved silently through the grass, slow, heavy, and haunting. It was a male lion, old and hungry, its once golden fur now ragged and scarred with old scars. Its eyes were sunken, as if lost in the void of a fading, glorious past. It hadn't eaten in days. The pack had fled. And today, it decided to stake the rest of its life on one last hunt. Ahead was a full-grown buffalo weighing 2,000 pounds, with thick, curved horns like axes. It was not an easy prey, nor a wise choice for a man whose energy was running low. But the lion had nothing to lose. He had one thing left: pride. The thing that had carried him through his prime years when every pounce was a victory. So it rushed forward. The attack was weak, but desperate. The buffalo turned, not panicking. The left horn knocked the lion aside. The right horn stabbed straight into its shoulder. The next blow sent the lion rolling on the ground, and then a heavy stomp as if to bury any remaining ambition. dust flew up. The lion lay still, panting, blood dripping on the hot ground. The buffalo turned and walked away. The battle was over, at least for it. But no, for the former king of the steppe, that ending was not enough. As the buffalo's back was disappearing behind the bushes, the lion struggled to his feet. His legs were trembling, but his eyes were still burning. He leaped up, charging at his opponent's back in one final pounce. Mistake. The buffalo turned around. The second charge hit the lion square in the chest. The roar was weak and then died away. But that was not all. From the other side. Another buffalo from the herd suddenly charged. Without hesitation, it put all its weight into a fatal charge, sending the lion flying and falling like a torn sack. When the dust cleared, the lion lay there motionless. Its heavy breathing gradually faded into silence. There was no applause, no audience, just the wind through the grass and the slow fall of dusk over the body of a man who once ruled this land. Not all failures come from weakness. Sometimes they stem from a bad decision when pride causes us to choose the wrong opponent. And in a world where claws are not always the ultimate weapon, the horns, silent and deadly, rewrote the outcome of a seemingly unequal confrontation. Where rivers cut through the savannah like time-worn scars, where tall grasses sway in the wind and the sky is endlessly blue, the Masai Mara is more than a nature reserve. It is a stage for existential drama. Here, the big cats walk like proud ghosts, the silent leopard, the lightning-fast cheetah, and the lion the king with more enemies than friends. Among the more than 900 lions roaming this grassland, there is a pride known to the Masai people as the Black Rock Boys. 5 male lions, huge, stubborn, and uncompromising. As they stalk a herd of more than 500 buffalo, the grass folds with each silent step of the predator. No need to roar, just patience. They know where there is a weakness in numbers. The 4 of them threaded their way through the grass, their eyes searching for every stray buffalo, every limping pair, every calf not yet fast enough to escape. But nature, as always, was unpredictable. A change in the wind. A buffalo's ear twitched, and then like a clap of thunder in the middle of the day, the herd detected a strange scent. Everything is broken. They charged a rushing torrent of flesh and horn. The lions turned and fled. 3 disappeared into the grass, but the 4th was a beat slower. It was caught in the raging sea of horns. There was nowhere to hide in front of it. But in the distance, a tree stood alone like a lone pole in the middle of the ocean. It rushed forward. Its claws dug deep into the dry, cracked wood. Its entire body hung from a high branch amid its ragged breathing and chaotic heartbeat. On the ground, the buffalo herd gathered, looking up. There was an eerie silence. Then, as if satisfied with the warning they had sent, they turned away, leaving the hunter alone as the survivor. Up high, the lion lay motionless, no longer the image of a ruler. For nearly an hour, it did not move. Not because of fear, but because it knew in this world just a small mistake, a contrary wind, is enough to render the claws useless. And the horns are what make all kings climb trees. The sun beats down on the parched lands of Malamala, one of South Africa's oldest and most brutal game reserves. Amid the sweltering heat and the dust that hangs in the air, a feast is taking place, full of blood, flesh, and instinct. 7 lions, their manes matted, surrounded a still warm buffalo carcass. They growled and tore at the flesh, their eyes fixed on the remaining tendons. It was the reward of a hard hunt, and they believed no one would dare come near while the king was feeding. But in the distance, a cloud of dust began to rise. A thunderous, stampeding sound echoed through the earth. A herd of buffalo returned, not running away as usual, but charging. No longer prey. Now they were a rebel army. Dozens of buffalo with curved horns like axes and fiery eyes charged straight at the lions, without flinching, without hesitation. A buffalo took the lead, charging straight at the largest lion, forcing it back several steps. The lions flinched. A moment of hesitation. A heartbeat stopped. They are not used to resistance. They are used to hunting without being chased. But the lions were quick learners. After a moment of surprise, they returned to their formation, roaring menacingly. Not giving up their half-eaten prey, they resolutely held their ground. The tug-of-war did not last long. A few buffalo stopped looking at the motionless body of the buffalo. Their eyes had lost hope. There was nothing left to save. And then, like a storm fading, the herd of buffalo retreated silently. Not a roar, not a glance back. They turned toward the horizon, leaving the lions to tear at their comrades in cold silence. Perhaps buffaloes have never truly understood the power they possess. They can wipe out a pride of lions if they set their minds to it. But nature does not always belong to the strong, but to those who know how strong they are. At noon, the sun scorched the golden grasslands that stretched to the horizon. There were no trees, no breeze. Yet life still breathed in the most peaceful of moments. A pride of dusty lion cubs is busy chasing a small lizard. Their clumsy pounces stir up dry grass. Their childish growls echo like a childhood song in the wild. Every leap, every slip is part of a game. They don't yet know that nature has its own rules. One of them, faster, bolder, took a bite of the prey and quietly separated from the pack. It ducked into the tall grass, finding a quiet corner to enjoy its small prize. But in the wild, where every tuft of grass could hide a pair of cold eyes, joy was short-lived. Suddenly the ground shook. From the other side of the mound, a huge black shape charged forward like a living armored vehicle of full-grown buffalo. There was no warning, just a burst of rage and sharp horns aimed straight at the small target. The lion cub didn't have time to turn around. A fierce charge sent it flying off the ground. Its light body flew into the air and then fell like a living sandbag in a cloud of dust. The sound, harsh, piercing, tore the innocent afternoon apart. The remaining lions were startled and fled, leaving the savannah desolate, and their first life lesson written in blood, fear, and enlightenment. On the savannah, even those born to rule must sometimes bow before vengeful horns. When the buffalo herd senses danger, it does not run away in panic. Instead, the herd immediately changes formation, as if trained by its ancestors. The young calves are pushed to the back, while the largest bulls, twice the size of an adult human, move forward, forming a solid wall of horns between life and death. At the foot of the hill, the lionesses watched. Their ambush had failed, and they were forced to retreat, while the buffalo herd gradually retreated to higher ground, where it was safer. But nature would not let them all escape. At the bottom of the slope, an old bull had strayed behind. A hind leg was dragging, and blood was running down his belly. He tried to climb up but could not. The lions sensed their opportunity and turned. One of them leapt from the stream bed, its hind legs springing like biological springs, aiming straight for the wounded buffalo. But before its claws could touch the tender flesh, a roar rang out from above. The herd turned. The horned warriors did not abandon their comrades. They charged down without hesitation, as if the buffalo's age was a reason to fight, not to abandon. The buffalo attack was so fierce and relentless that the lions fled again. There would be no prey today. No guaranteed meal, not even for the best predators. And then in the settling dust, the old bull slowly rose. He staggered, but this time he climbed up the bank. He turned facing his killers. No gore, no roar, just the calm gaze of a creature that had won the battle for survival through the loyalty of its herd. The buffalo, the despised brute, is Africa's most dangerous horned animal, killing hundreds of people every year. To hunters, buffalo are a prized trophy. To lions, they are a mortal challenge. And today, as the grass grows quiet, the king of the jungle, the lion, has retreated. Buffalo soldiers do not need thrones to be respected. They only need to stand firm, and all of nature will be afraid. A herd of more than 1,000 buffalo moved like a living storm. But this time the storm spared no obstacle. And ahead, a lone lion cub separated from its herd, caught between its immature instincts and the fury of the hunted. He scrambled up a fallen tree, low, slippery, barely a cover, but the only thing between him and death. His forelegs clung his body, shaking with every stroke. Below, a huge bull was closing in his scythe-sharp horns inches away. His breath fanned the tree, hot as fire. He roared and charged. The sound of breaking wood echoed like the tearing sound of fate. The tree trunk shattered. The lion cub fell right at the feet of the angry bull. In that moment, the world held its breath. Between life and death, there was only one small sound that could change fate. Where the sun burns the ground with a dry breath, where the wind carries the scent of burning grass, and the sound of insects echoes like a warning, the African savanna is never truly peaceful. Here, every creature learns to survive or become part of someone else's meal. And at the top of the food chain, there is the male lion, the uncrowned emperor. With its fiery mane, muscular body, and teeth that can crush bone, it does not need to prowl in the shadows. When it steps out, the grasslands fall silent. The ruler needs no introduction. Its shadow is enough to scatter antelope herds. In the eyes of all living things, the lion is the embodiment of approaching death. Yet there are days when the ruler himself steps into hell. In the Kruger Game Reserve, a vast sun-drenched expanse of South Africa, a hunt begins in oppressive silence. Two male lions, as silent as ghosts, take advantage of the dry terrain and dense undergrowth to approach a herd of buffalo resting by a watering hole. Their eyes lock on their target, a young buffalo standing slightly apart from the herd. In the wild, one wrong step can mean death. And then the moment came. Like a whirlwind, the lion rushed out of his hiding place. The herd of buffalo fled in panic. The sound of their feet stomping on the ground was like thunder, and dust flew everywhere. Before the young buffalo could understand what was happening, it became the target. Just a few steps, and the lion had brought its prey down. It all happened exactly as its instincts had told it for thousands of years. Its teeth were about to sink into its prey's throat when an angry roar tore through the air. From afar, a full-grown buffalo returned. It did not abandon its fellows. It did not abandon its young. With horns curved like a warrior's scythe and eyes red with fire, it charged without hesitation. The first blow stunned the lion. The second lifted him off the ground like a sack of rotten hay. The force, the impact, the fear, all of it seemed to strike straight at the pride of the ruler. The lion fell to the hard ground with a choked scream. It tried to get up, but the buffalo did not stop. The fury of the hunted was reaching its peak. The lion rose, turned, and ran its tail curled tightly in an admission of defeat. It dove into the pond, trying to find a way out, but the buffalo was still close behind, determined not to let go. Finally, as the cold water seeped into his burning golden fur, the lion broke free. He was panting, shivering, and soaked not from the water but from fear. And for the first time, he understood that the hunter doesn't always win. Because in Africa, there are days when the sun shines, not to honor the strong, but to illuminate the moment when the weak rebel. and the horns speak for nature. In the thick silence of the South African wilderness, before the sun had even risen, and the shadows of the trees were still long on the red earth, a faint, dusty trail swept across the edge of the Londolozi forest. It was not the wind, it was the sign of a large creature moving cautiously. A full-grown buffalo, curved horns and bulging muscles, looking for a place to rest after a long night of foraging. But it did not know that. Other eyes were watching its every move, cold, silent, and calculating. Hidden in the bushes, 2 lionesses held their breath. They were young, barely into adulthood, but their hunting instincts had been honed since childhood. With no way out, they decided to make a trade with strength, perseverance, and even recklessness. As the buffalo approached, the charge was lightning fast. Both lions pounced on their prey claws, digging into flesh, sharp teeth, trying to pierce armor-like muscle. The buffalo struggled fiercely. Each step it took back left a trail of blood on the ground. It roared, not in pain, but as a warning, I have not fallen yet. The fight lasted for hours. The 2 lions used every skill they had, biting the neck, pulling it down, and holding its 4 legs. At times, it seemed as if the buffalo would lie still, panting, eyes growing dim with exhaustion. But the survival instinct, the invisible weapon, had not left it. And then, in an almost surreal moment, the buffalo reared up. With a desperate but powerful toss of its head, it knocked one of the lions aside and charged away, staggering, bloody but alive. The 2 lions could only watch, breathless and hungry, as their prey disappeared into the dust like a ghost. In Londolozi, hunting is not always a story of the strongest man winning. Sometimes it is the one who seems to be on the brink of defeat who ends up standing. And sometimes nature simply reminds us that there are no certainties in the wild, except for the unexpected. It was near dusk. The last rays of the sun cast orange-red streaks across the burnt grass, where dryness met darkness. A lioness lay crouched in the underbrush, her eyes as taut as a bowstring. Alone, but not afraid. Ahead, a herd of buffalo was herding toward the lake. Hungry, perhaps, tired, perhaps, but instinct told her to take the gamble, and she did. The attack failed. A slip, a moment slower than a breath. The herd reacted as one. 100 muscles moved in unison. Heads lowered, horns lowered. A wall of flesh and fury exploded like thunder across the plain. The lion was knocked to the ground. But that was not all. The buffaloes rushed forward one by one, goring, trampling, and thrashing their bodies as if it were not a predator, but a toy that had been discovered. Dust flew everywhere. No one could see anything, only the sound of stomping echoed like the drums of death. A buffalo grabbed its horns, lifted the lion's body off the ground, and threw it down like a torn sack. No roar, no resistance, just silence. The cameraman couldn't believe his eyes. It was a moment when nature held its breath. When the dust cleared, the lion lay motionless, its body thrown to the edge of the lake. Eyes closed, head tilted to one side. It was unclear whether it was in pain or if it had stopped forever. And then, as if nothing had happened, the herd continued. No joy, no grief, just a survival response, crude but effective. In Ruaha National Park, where rain had not fallen for months, a dry waterhole became the center of a life-or-death encounter. Herds of buffalo advanced silently, kicking up dust with each heavy step. They had walked miles, starving and thirsty, to reach the only place left that could sustain them. Water was not a luxury now. It was survival. But the water was not the only thing the buffalo were watching. In the distance, hidden in the tall grass, a pride of lions was waiting. Hungry, patient, silent. They were not reckless hunters. They were seasoned hunters biding their time. They spread out, circling the buffalo. Like shadows, they waited for the moment of chaos to strike. And then a wordless signal. The grass moved. The earth rumbled. Lions charged from all directions. They did not target the strong buffalo herd, but those who were behind the young, the old, or the lonely. But there was one thing the lions had not anticipated. The buffalo's thirst was stronger than their fear. They did not run. They fought back. Their curved horns whirled, knocking back the predator. The roar of the buffalo, the roar of the lion, the stomping of their feet blended together in a fierce symphony of life. The lions made a mistake. They separated the buffalo herd, but they divided themselves. Instead of dominating, they were pushed into the middle. Instead of hunting, they became the hunted. The sky was red. The midday heat was scorching. The buffalo herd held firm. The lions, exhausted and starving, began to slow. One of the youngest lionesses held firm. Alone, she crept closer, looking for an opening in the herd. But isolation was a death sentence. She aimed for a cub, but before she could strike, the mother counterattacked fiercely. The counterattack was swift and ruthless. The young lion fell not dead but powerless. It was the last blow, the last hope, and it failed. Today, nature has reversed its role. The horns have won. The claws have to retreat in silence. As dusk falls over the African savanna, the battlefield returns to silence. But beneath the red dust and bloodstains, there are stories of survival that nature never stops telling. The fight between the buffalo and the lion is more than just a battle between predator and prey. It is a testament to resilience, to the power of unity, to the fact that nothing is certain. No matter who wins or loses today, tomorrow the sun will rise again, and the cycle of life and death will continue. Because in this place, only the strongest or the smartest are allowed to survive another day. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you also find wildlife to be the most fascinating story humanity has ever witnessed.